Everything that's going to happen to you is within your ability to prepare for, including objections. And in this model, we are going to cover price, not just price, but like a bunch of different objections that you likely get when you're making sales, because you need to walk in expecting to get no and then get comfortable with that and be able to handle that. Most often, people get thrown off their game when they get an objection, but it's generally the best time to close the sale and the deal. And the thing is, people need you for that. That's your job. Because if they could have convinced themselves or ever disciplined on their own, or if they didn't have any limiting beliefs or anything like that, that they wouldn't need you at the first place, right? And again, we have our convictions in ourselves and our products that we are trying to improve their life and their health and get them to what is important for them and get them that future. And we need to help them go through this first and make this decision and sign up for our services, which solves all of that. So, let's get started. So, I'll cover this, I'll try to segment this in three different sections. So, in the first one, I'll cover some tactical things that you can include in your offer that sort of handles a lot of objections even before they come beforehand and are generally easier ways that can be included in the system. Second, are going to be some more nuanced that are not as common but still get thrown around every now and then. And the third one, I'll try to dig deeper into the more common objections like time commitment based objections, not being the decision maker ones, price money ones, and things like that, right? So, anyways, let's get started with the first one, which is the tactical things that prevent. I just made a few notes, apologies for that, that prevent objections that quite often get thrown. The first and the most easiest thing you could do is add guarantees, preferably a money back guarantee with conditions, obviously, provided they respond to messages, they follow the plans, everything else. Or add performance-based guarantee that if within this time they don't get this result, you'll keep working with them until they do right. And the thing is, the guarantee itself takes away the fear of failure or that hesitation that most people have where they're afraid of losing. And like this pretty much is like, what's the worst case scenario? You're gonna get your money back. And that's why we've made the guarantee because you're pretty much guaranteed to succeed, right? And we frame it that way, provided you do all of these things. And that just like guarantees make it so much easier to get sales done. Even if you do get some people claiming returns later, and it's like very low, it's like between 3 to 5% generally, unless your product or service is horrible, in which case you shouldn't be in the business. But let's suppose that's not the case and you've set them up correctly. Um, the easier it makes for you to close and the more sales you get makes guarantees worthwhile, right? Anyways, moving on to the next one, which is I can't pay all of this amount up front, and that's generally the case, or I don't have the resources or whatever. Offer them payment plans. Like we already discussed this earlier, but you could do the same thing right now. If they can't pay all of the amount up front, lower it down to 50%. Why don't you just pay 50% today in that case, and we can pay the remaining over on a weekly basis during the next 3 months? Does that sound fair? Right. So I would just lead them into a payment plan in that case. Also makes it easier if objectively that's what the issue is. Third one is, can I get back to you tomorrow? I don't make the decisions right now. Um, or most of these stall clauses, this can be resolved before it happens by baking in deadlines into like the offer. The and it's better to have an imperfect urgency scarcity than to have none at all. So make sure that we only have a few spots left and we're only taking a number of spots today or something like that, right? Like have a reason, like we have a limited number of bonuses or something that justifies why they need to decide right now or they need to decide today. Or today is like the day where we need to, where if you like this is an offer, we're only gonna offer it at this price today. So they generally decide at the end, and you can just circle that over. And normally that would also handle them that decision fatigue that they're going on with. And the one that like quite often when they tell you that I have this thing coming up, I have a marriage coming up, I have whatever, an operation, my son's graduation, a very easy way to overcome that, which also you can include in your package, is you guys can sign up today And in the next 3 months, whenever you get ready, you can get started, right? Like the three of these, like the four of these that I just mentioned right now are things that I found more commonly people come used to come up with, and they just take care of those objections pretty easily, right? And again, especially with the guarantees, some of you have that fear that, oh, what if I did all the work and they ask for the money back? Honestly, if they follow the plan, they will lose weight. If they don't, the guarantee is not valid. But you can follow that up with saying that because this means so much to you, I'm sure you'll make it work precisely because of that reason. Right. Anyways, with that in mind, let's move on to the next objections that you might likely get, which is slightly less common. One of them is going to be, I already have something in mind. Like us, when we were offering marketing services in my previous workplace, many of them would say, I already have an agency or I already have an in-house marketing team. Some of these guys might say, I already have a personal trainer. I already go to a gym, which is like whatever their $20 per week membership that they're signed up for. And you can say, well, that's perfect. You can do both. So many of the members that do come to our facility or that are part of our program are also signed up to external, already go to the gym or already have it. Many of them have had a trainer. And you can do both. And we can help you get better and also help you get more value out of your existing gym or your existing trainer or something like that, right? Depending on if it's clashing with your module, in which case I'll get to later, if like it's literally a competition. In which case, you could just do the comparison and be like, you could still offer them sign up here. And then in that period, you can move past the other one. And generally, we created a gap before. So they should see the value in what you're offering by this point already. All right. Now, before I get into the more comprehensive objection handling with price objections and time objections and whatever spouse or family member permission they need and stuff like that. A few things to keep in mind. One of them is that don't argue with the person. That will just make them defensive. You always want to acknowledge the reason they're providing you why they can't do it, right? Get them to say, like, it's like there was a book that it starts with no, I think that's what it was called, where it was like, when someone rejects you, they let their guard down. And that rejection then allows you to then communicate more effectively with them and get back into the circle and then close them again, right? So instead of just rejecting it outright, it's perfectly fine. Like, agree with them, totally understand whatever objection, like, I completely get it. As a matter of fact, some general frames that you could use here that further highlight that is, as a matter of fact, that's just like what a lot of some of our best success stories or what Susan or what some of our best clients were exactly like that at the time they were signing up. Like, and because this, I would have been afraid or I would have been worried if this wasn't a big deal for you because it is a big decision, it is a big commitment, and that's why it would work and you would give it the due importance and the due attention that it requires, right? That we can generally frame what they're saying, which they thought was an objection. They're like, "Oh no, that's the best thing you could do. It's a good now you're the ideal candidate." And generally, we just change the frame that way, and we make them feel accepted, and we make them feel relatable, and then we get back into the sale. We'd be like, so I'd say that like whatever, if it's commitment based, if it's price based, we can lead in with that, right? But anyways, um, let's get started with the first one being price objections. So, price objections are like generally the more common one you get, and if they don't agree to payment plans, the other thing that you get quite often are generally because you created a gap earlier or you know what they're struggling with. Just give me a second. And we're back. So here's the thing, quite often, money isn't, or time, or the main objection they throw at you quite often isn't the real objection. Quite often it's a surface level. Or they're not aware of the level of objection themselves, and it's just like a norm that they have in their mind that you should pay a certain amount for a certain service, and you need to break that mold for them. Um, and like restructure the way they think. But so in this case, that's why we created the gap earlier, right? So let's suppose somebody says, well, this is not something I can afford right now, or somebody else, like I thought this other guy was offering it for more cheaper. Like we'll get to that one later. But let's say they throw a price objection at you where I can't afford this or something. Generally, the easier way to start this off with would be in a more curious tone, like, I'm confused. When we discussed earlier, you mentioned that this has been something that has been like you've been struggling with your feeling of your self-esteem being low and you're like whenever you see yourself in the mirror, you don't like it. And you want and you feel like you'll get all of these relationships and all of these better opportunities once we finally fix this. And this has been such a big problem for you. I thought it wouldn't be like price wouldn't be the thing that is the main concern, or the importance of what we are going for is much more valuable than what the program might be costing, right? So I might frame it something like that just to get them to see to go back into the gap that they created, which is why we did earlier, right? Honestly, quite often the gap alone should justify it, where you could just use those reasons again, and that's how you would normally do it as well. Like when you know that somebody wants the outcome so badly, and then they give you some weird ass reason, and that in that stage you could be like, well, what's more important to us, right? You just mentioned earlier you've been struggling with this for years. And this is the chance we can fix it once and for all, for all. So are you not gonna make it work, and just leave it be and struggle for the next 5 years as well, right? That's one way of doing it, but here are some like more classic overcomes. So the first one is you're gonna spend the money anyways, close. This is where I might tell them, well, here, John, here's the thing. Quite often people come to us who think that this is expensive and then they go out and they spend that money anyways, but they spend it on things that are not important. You might spend that on food. You might spend that on like whatever new thing or football games or things like that and extra expenses that are gonna come up anyways. And before you know it, like, but it was not an investment, it was a depreciating thing that you wasted all this money in. And the thing is, based on what we discussed earlier, if this goes on, you would probably end up spending even more in newer clothes and in whatever dating apps that you have to use, or in all of these different things, as well as in terms of opportunity cost, right? So, like, if you're going to spend that amount anyways, which will likely be much more than what you're going to spend right now, then why wouldn't this be the better deal, right? That's one angle and one frame I would take. The other thing is like, have you ever bought something that you couldn't afford close? So this is where I would say, like, have you ever invested in like purchased something that you couldn't like afford, like if it was a dress or if it was like a PlayStation or something, and you saved up and you found the money somehow to buy it because it was so important to you and you saw so much value in it. Based on everything we discussed earlier, and based on what you've told me, this is something that is significantly important to you. So are you telling me like you don't have access to the funds or you don't know anybody who within the next 30 days can help you um, sign up for this program and finally start changing your life or improving your life for the better? That quite often takes them back into that frame and also compares it to other decisions they've taken in the past, which makes it easier for this to proceed. And then I would probably lead with um, like one of the other clauses to get them to might be the value of an action or something like that, and still connecting it back to the gap and the goals and the pains. And then be like, well, if that's the case, then why don't we get started right now? Right? And worst case, like you're gonna get your money back, so you're not gonna lose this. Um, and also that the other was there was something else. Yeah, the payment plan. So that's the other thing we could include. So because I know this is so much important to you, why don't we get started on a plan? Like regardless, and if they say like that's not it, then you could literally ask them. Be like, and if price isn't the concern, like what's the other reason, like besides this, that is still holding you back? Because quite often people won't tell you the main objection they have in mind. They'll come up with something else to justify, right? And these are the ways we can fix it. Um, they are not seeing value in the product or enough value, which is why they quite often throw in the price objections. Like again, if I sold you a Ferrari for 500 bucks, you would buy it. You'd come up with the money even if you had to like borrow it or something, right? Um, that's the thing with value-based ones. And this is also one of the reasons why you make a stack. and you make your overall comprehensive nature look so good that you can then use that as contrast as well. Well, everything that is included here, if you were to purchase that separately, it would already cost you much more than what you're paying right now, right? We actually make more money in the back end, or generally when people stay with us long term. This is a way for us to like pretty much give you as much value as we can and guarantee the results, which is why we've concluded nutrition plans and personal training and group sessions and access to all of these training videos. And you get everything personalized to you, which is why it's almost guaranteed to work. Um, and you're getting this at this such a valuable price point, right? Then sometimes the other thing also that works well when people throw price objections, especially if they seem a bit status conscious or they seem a bit like, worried about their impression or what others think of them, which might be the case because they're worried about their image if they have that thing going on with their weight being more, right? Or if somebody's trying to gain muscle if they're a guy and they want to look more like compete for whatever, take their shirt off on the beach. I might say something like, and this is also something that courtesy goes to Hormozy, which is I could have sworn I wouldn't have taken you for someone for whom like this amount would have been an issue. So you throw them a label that I didn't think this amount of money or like cash would have been an issue for you to sign up for a program like this, right? And now to refuse that, they need to lower their standard even more. And they wouldn't do that. So they would generally, so I would, then you can follow this up by saying, well, if money isn't the issue, then what else is? And then they give you a different objection, and then you can handle that, which would be one of the other ones. But besides that, like these are one of the ways that you can handle the price objections very easily and effectively. If they tell you, and there's another alternative which is more cheaper, or I can just get a option which is cheaper and doesn't include everything that you mentioned earlier. We still address that with everything that we mentioned before, which was there's this entire offer stack. Um, does that program include personalized meal plans? Does that program include um, these training videos? Does it include community access? Does it include me? Well, the thing is, you've tried those things in the past based on what you told me, right? And it didn't work for you. And we know it doesn't work for other members as well, because without accountability or without the right nutrition or without personalized guidance or without being in the right environment, whatever main reason being, that you can use, you won't get the results. So you're either gonna pay with your time or you're gonna pay with your money, right? And over here, you start this off with, and you get those results once and for all, whereas you might try different options which are not as effective. And we know that you had trouble in the past sticking to things which weren't as comprehensive because they wouldn't work, because they're not made the right way, right? So why do you want to go there and waste your money? Another way to handle price objection quite often when they give you comparison of someone else is just say, well, if both of us were priced the same, which one would you go with? And quite often they would say, I would go with you. And in that case, you could follow up by saying, well, why is that the case? And then they would give you the reasons. Because you're better and this is likely going to work. And then you just follow up with that. Exactly. The reason we are priced higher is because we provide you better service and that gets you the results. And that's why we have all of these testimonials, right? And if you had the choice between getting the future that you want or getting that outcome, or being inefficient and waiting more longer and taking the risk of perhaps failing again, which option are you going to go with? Right? That takes care of that. And finally, or one of the more like easier ways, not easier, but another comprehensive way to handle this is using pricing as a frame to justify why it works. The reason we are expensive is because our service is so valuable and we have put in so much like deal into ensuring that the plan and everything works, which is why we get all of these results, right? That you can see in our testimonials and everywhere else. And what would you rather have? Like, if you went for one of those cheaper gyms or one of those cheaper programs or options that likely doesn't work, many of our members or many of the people that come to us, the reason they precisely come to us is because we are priced with that surety and we don't have that risk in our service because we are so comprehensive and because this program includes everything that you're after, that you won't have to take that risk anymore. And then you can again connect that back to the things that they tell. And because you told me that your goal is to lose this much weight and play with your kids and take your shirt off on the gym and sorry, on the beach and fit back into your high school clothes. And that's something that you've been trying for years and you want to do it once and for all without the risk, then let's go with this one. What are you waiting for? Right. Now, those are like some of the more common ways of handling price objections. You can pick any you want or any that you're comfortable with. Generally, after you say this, most of them won't be stubborn. They'll likely give you something else. They might throw a time objection or something else if they're just trying to. But the thing is, like, the process of this is peeling back the onion. Like, you're trying, like, they give you a reason, you help them realize and understand genuinely why that's not true. And again, remind them of the things they told you earlier, which is why you need to build that connection in the gap selling framework. Um, what their goals were and what they were struggling with, that they feel like they need to take this decision and action, and will work for them, right? Now, moving on to time objections, which is I'm not ready right now. Not for time or not being ready. If it's that I'm busy all the time, or they give you some weird ass reason like that, um, and that you can start anytime within the next 3 months doesn't work as well because they're like, well, I'm not sure when I will be less busy. And then you're wondering, why did this guy show up at the first place? But anyway, so one of the easier ways to overcome that is first one being, well, walk me through your routine, right? And you just find them the time, maybe like, or you just be like, well, how much, show me your phone and let's see how much time you spend on social media in the week. And you can just go to settings and look at the time they're spending on social media and everywhere else. I'd be like, can we reduce this time? Can we take away the time that you spend eating out? Can we do things like that? Well, I found you the time. Now you can spend this time doing this job, right? Coming, finding, sorry, being a part of this program so you can finally get the future, the dream outcome that you want, which is whatever they mentioned earlier. Um, Other one is the Jeff Bezos clause, which is like, so the richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos, has the same amount of hours as you, right? But how can he get 10 times more work done in the same amount of time? It's not that he's doing something that you're not as part of your routine, but he's not doing the things. I probably reframed that, but basically, like we're saying, he's not doing all the extra things that you're doing. And that's something we can also look at your calendar where what are the things that you're doing which are not as important as not as priority. And I'm sure all of us have those. And here you can give them examples like um, doom scrolling or doing whatever. And like if you just remove those, we'll find the time, right? And we will tailor it to your schedule or depending on the days you're available or whatever. If you have like group classes at a certain time, you could be like, you can alternate the days. Um, and then just follow that up with saying we make the time for the things that are important to us because you will always be busy. But it's the people who are busy who get the best results because they care more and they value it more and they're more conscious of the time. So they put in the most effort for the time they're giving to this, right? And the other clause that quite often works here, which is the same thing I mentioned earlier, which you could do for price, you could do for time, you could do it for any, is this is just like our best client, or this is just like Susie. She's also just like you. She was like a single mom doing two jobs and wasn't sure if she would be able to, she'll have the energy or she'll have the time to come here. And because she still took that leap of faith and she found the time, and now she has all of these successful results, and she had the same concerns. And I want you to know that once you get started, once you habituate to it, you'll be looking forward to this, and this will be more comfortable for you. And there's this whole community, and there's all these great things that are waiting for you right now, right? You deserve to have this time for yourself, which is another angle that you could give. You've done so much for you. And you're doing so much, you're working so much, you deserve to have some time for yourself. That's another way of closing. Now, if they tell you something like, I can't decide today, or I have like, and I had this a lot. As a matter of fact, I closed one of the biggest deals um through the same question and literally just raising this got the other guy to just be like, well, there's nothing to decide because he was just afraid of making that choice and people would delay making the choice and they would rather not take the decision than take that leap of faith, and that's where you want to push them to do it because you understand their pain and you understand their goals. So this is where he, well, if he says like, I can't decide today or I need some time to think, well, like, sure. What do you want to think about? Right? Like, what questions do you have? They thought that would end it, but no, you're still here. So we're like, because I'm your source of information. So you're not gonna come up with the things with more extra info by thinking on your own. You're not gonna sit in a rocking chair when you go home and come up with the answer, because what will likely happen is you'll go back home, you'll have to pick up your kids, you'll have your friends calling you out, there'll be 10 more problems that would require your attention. And then you'd forget about this, and 3 days later, you'd look at yourself in the mirror and you'd feel the same pain again. And you'd realize that this decision that you've been putting off for such a long time needs to be made. So, do you want to make it today? Or if there's something you genuinely can't understand, then ask me. I'll tell you about it. Right? Generally, like you're their source of information. If they need more information, it's not gonna like, they're not gonna dream, they have a dream at night and somebody will come and give them the answers. You're the person who's gonna answer them. So do it that way, right? Like that's like an easier way or a confrontational was like a humorous way of handling that. The other one is when this is like a similar version of what I mentioned earlier, like time-based, Jeff Bezos-based closes, which was um you ask them that when they say, I'm really busy these days, I don't have the time. And you could say, well, do you think that you will also be busy in the future? Or are you sure that you will no longer be busy once you're done with this task that you've mentioned, right? And they will say, like, like exactly. Because the reality is we will always be busy, which is why you need to do this right now. So you have that time and you build that habit and get into this process of getting this done when you're busy so that you finally get the results and you also feel better about yourself. So at your work or whatever thing that you're focused on, you perform even better there. But more importantly, so you are used to doing like taking care of your health and your fitness when you're busy. And so whenever you get busy in the future, you would know that you have this solid habit in place and it will no longer be something that would be eating you or will be making you feel guilty every single day or every time your friends spoke to you about it, right? That's another way of addressing the time close. Again, pick anyone you like. Um, Say it with literally anything delivered with convictions at this stage, using the moral authority frame, quite often does help address the objections. And people want you to help them. You just need to get them to make that decision. Position-based objections like I need to ask my spouse or um, I need to ask like whatever my great grandfather or something like that. The thing is, this might be a mistake on your end as well, because in the beginning, ideally in the pre-sale questionnaire, you want to confirm or you need to gauge that out that can this person make the decision on their own? The thing is, generally they can, so don't worry so much about it. Um, and so quite often, one of the easier ways to address this is literally just ask them, well, like walk them through it. What do you think your spouse would do? Because do they know how much you have been trying to lose this weight and how much important this is for you? And they'll be like, yes. Then do you think, then you can follow that up by saying, well, then do you think they're going to stop you? And if they're going to be like, perfect. So you know they're not going to stop you anyways. And you know that you need to take the decision right now. And you know what happens when you keep on delaying it because you delayed it in the past. So why don't you sign up for the last spot? Or one of the last spots or something like that? Like I would just direct that into the call direction. Other one being that, um, did you ever purchase something that you really wanted and even though your spouse was against it, but they were fine with that later? Has that done it in the past? Because I know I've done it. I might use myself as an example because um and like normally we're cool with it. So do you think sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness rather than permission, right? I think this was something that Hormozy did mention. But yeah, that's another way of walking through this close. And then one of the more funniest and the last ones as well, again, learned this from the same guy, is that yeah, I delivered this in one go. So he goes something like, well, here, Susan, if you go home and your husband tells you that you don't want to sign up for this, well, and he says something like, hey baby, I don't want you to lose any weight. I want you to sit on the couch all day and put your hand in a bag of Cheetos and eat them and then, just take your grease-filled hands and then wipe your sweatpants off it. I want you to pass generational unhealth into our grandkids. I want you to die 20 years early so I can marry a younger version of you and you're just perfect the way you are. And if he tells you something like that, honestly, you send your husband to me so we can talk to them so they can take better care of you. But otherwise, just tell us and we'll give you your money back, right? But likely that won't happen. So why don't we get ourselves started? That's sort of where you blend in humor when it comes for permission. This is probably one of the favorite or the most entertaining or the most memorable objection overcomes I've learned from that guy. I've never used it in business, even though we have similar styles where we could say, well, if your business partner tells you, I want you to go broke, I want you to struggle and lose all your hairs and something like that. I did make a similar version, but it feels a lot more genuine for the fitness industry, which it was originally made for, and definitely use that. Now the last one are gonna be some weird objections that you get that are not as common, but you still get them sometimes, right? Um, Sometimes it's like they have already tried a fitness program in the past or a diet in the past or something similar in the past that didn't work for them. And over here you can use that you don't want to be burned twice objection overcome, which is so if they say, hey, I already tried something similar, I already tried this a fitness program similar. Last time it didn't work for me or it failed for me. And then you could say, well, have you ever dated somebody in high school or had a crush on someone in high school and you finally went out with them? And they're not currently your wife or your husband, and did after that breakup or that like ever had an ex that you thought was the love of your life, and then you guys didn't end up having the dreams that you saw back then? And were you after that encounter be like, I'm never gonna meet women again. Relationships are not gonna be for me. I'm gonna sit at home all day and just, be by myself and just work. And I don't know why humans have relationships. Were you like that, right? No, right? Because you then later went out and you met people that were much better and you were able to have those relationships and build those connections. The same thing goes here. Just like anywhere else, you'll find both people who are good and both that are bad. And you don't want someone who wasn't good to burn you twice. Because first they didn't deliver on your expectations back then in the past, especially in the fitness space, but you also don't want them to prevent you from achieving your goals right now. And the thing is, you have based on everything you've seen and interacted with us, objectively speaking, do you think this is going to work or not? And they will likely say yes, if we do all of these things. And they'll be like, and you have all of these testimonials as well, right? And what's the worst case scenario? If it doesn't work, you can just add you can get your money back, or I'll keep working with you until it does. So you're guaranteed to succeed no matter what. So I might use an objection overcome similar to that when we are handling the bad experiences in the past objection. Now other things, sometimes you get obstacles where people say there's something about the overall plan that they're not happy with, in which case you're free to adjust it. If they're like, um, I don't like eating broccoli. Does green peas work? And she's like, yes. So perfect, green peas it is. Do you want to sign up now? Um, so you can quite often make those changes and then lead them back into making that decision and action and then close them. And yeah, I mean, there are a lot more objections and obstacle overcomes and things like that that I can't cover, but these are the ones that I think you guys will experience the most in this fitness space. And pick any of the ones, get good at those, because it needs to sound natural, it needs to sound empowering, and then just flow with it, right? You're gonna get objections, that is guaranteed. So you might as well get better at handling them. Imagine having the same conversation multiple times and still being bad at it. You're the person who is the business owner. They're doing this for the first time. You should absolutely know all the overcomes and all the answers. Um, and with that, let's move on to the next lesson.